All right. Good morning, Wild and Well Together listeners and community, our wild ones. It's Jen and Becca here. And as you can see, I'm settling in. I came after going on a trip with Nick, so I need to get back in the zone. But we are glad you're here for Her Huddles. And this week we're talking about work life rhythm. We were going to talk about work life balance, but Jen's really going to lead this out and come into this place of what are the rhythms that we're in? What do they look like? As opposed to saying balance, it's not 50-50, but rather different seasons look different ways. And how do we integrate those different seasons in our lives? And what does that look like from the sense of being present and wanting to have a healthy rhythm of shared space, of giving details to rest and recharging and handling personal responsibilities, but then also saying, I need to deliver the things I need to deliver and put food on the table and hold some of those energies there too for my professional side. So we'll get into the details of that. How do we flow through both work and life, and what's the pairing rather than the duality of those? Before we get to those, though, what is the unpopular opinion for our wild ones, Jen?
The unpopular opinion this week is we are, as you all know, transitioning from spring to summer. And so, what I would like to put out there is that May is too soon for iced coffee. Like, it's not yet warm enough for iced coffee. Maybe this is unique to Denver, but, like if you're in Arizona or like a Texas, I probably would have a different lens on this, but I think May for me, it's still too soon to have iced coffee. That's my take. What do you think, Becca?
I'm a 24/7 hook it up, baby. No, I'll take it though all year round. So cold brew. Let me ask this: iced coffee, I would take. I love warm coffee too, hot coffee. Um, I'll
Lukewarm. Lukewarm.
I was waiting for that. Okay, so for all our wild ones, this could be the unpopular opinion too, or we'll get into this another week. Those that love me well and know me well know that I drink my coffee, start it when it's hot, and by the time I get to it, it's lukewarm or cold, or it's repurposed, or it's whatever. So having an iced coffee though is fun for me, is good. Would you put iced coffee and cold brew in the same, or would you say those are different?
Oh, no, I think they're probably the same. I would consider them the same.
Okay, so as far obviously taste, all of our coffee connoisseurs are like, "What? These girls don't know anything." Da 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 da. Chill, chill, chill. Two very different ways that they're made, and all of that. And yet, I would say is if the ice, or excuse me, if the coffee is cold, that's the premise of this. In Denver, Colorado, or in Colorado, is having cold coffee okay prior to June? I raise my hand and say yes. I'm hearing you say no. Enjoy the hot.
Yeah, I like it hot.
She likes it hot, folks. You heard it here first. She likes it hot. All right. So for those of you that love it hot, 9 months out of the year, let it bake, let it stay warm. Let us know. For those of you that are like, hey, rip it off, cold, lukewarm, however you want it, but especially iced. We won't put you into my category. Iced coffee or cold brew. Will you take it year round, or is it just in the summer months here? So a fun look there. And Jen, if you lead us into, then tell us your thoughts. We were talking about it in the prep a bit, and I made us literally re title this. What are your thoughts on work life balance, misconceptions, ideas, pros, cons, and then why ultimately you said let's do work life integration or work life rhythms?
Mm. Yeah, I think that this term work-life balance is super well intentioned, and I in the last just like 5 to 7 years, I feel like it has been a very popular term, just in terms of culture and how we think about our lives and splitting our time and integrating our time between all sort of the circles that are this one big Venn diagram of what we do and what we're responsible for of our lives. And I think that there's a lot of good in the term. However, what I think that it has the potential to do, and there's some research about this as well, that um, particularly for women, the work-life balance term, I think the key there is balance, almost sets up this sort of like equitable 50-50 split that feel like it's just one more metric to fail at, where it's like at all times I'm trying to keep like my work at like 50% and my life at like 50%. And that is, I think, just like that reckoning with the word balance is where I have a rub with the term work-life balance. And I try to think about it just a little bit differently in the sense of, like, I think life often is more in seasons and chapters, and in those seasons and chapters, things are lopsided. So, like, if work life balance is trying to pour from like two things equally and never spilling, I think of something like work life rhythm or work life integration. More so like knowing which one needs to be full or which one needs filling right now. And that seasonality, I think, gives us a lot more permission from my perspective.
Beautiful. Reckoning, coming in hot. I think that there is that piece, though, of you giving permission to us as women to say, we already have so many things stacked up for not just inventory of who we are as women, but how we operate. And in that often can come criticism or shame or whatnot. And so I was thinking as you were sharing that, there's a term, I might mispronounce it. I should look it up actually. I think it's Wu Wei, but it's a Taoism term, and it's this idea of like it's a question. I can do this with two other ones, or I'll do it with two other ones as we go through it. But it's this idea of where am I forcing my energy?
Mm.
Not saying that we having a heavy plate for work or a heavy plate at home life or lack of sleep or whatever is necessarily a right or a wrong or an up or a down. Sure, they'll have implications, but more so coming into this place of, am I forcing myself to stay late at work? Am I forcing myself to go on this vacation because I just need rest when in actuality I feel more stressed by moving away from work than just handling my business at work for the next 2 weeks and then coming home and saying, "Oh, wait, I actually do have a clean break in 2 weeks," and I can see that ebb and flow to your place. So, I think it's that question again, and I just pulled it up. It's yeah, Wu Wei, I think it is, but it's where am I enforcing instead of flowing, and us really start to think about that because you and I have both had loss and we've both had pain and hurt in our last, 3, 4 years of life, and we've had to take care of family. And that made sense, and fortunately, we worked I'll speak for myself, working with, like, Nick's company while he then slowly went back, or then working with my company after the death of my cousin to slowly, like, get back into it, and I know for your season, you had different, administrative roles or managers that really saw you in that season, and so work did take back seats. Whereas now, fast forward, you and I are in the grind, like, full on, and I think that's where we come back to the question, or I come to the question of you, is do you feel like with work you're forcing right now in this blitz season, or the flow is more like a rushing river than a stream, but it's still manageable?
It's more of a rushing river, but manageable. And I think also too, if I look at sort of like the signals of my life and the things that are happening in my life, my thought is everything is pointing to this is a great time in your life. You have sort of the margin, the space to pour into this particular area of your life right now in ways that you won't always have. And so from like a seasonality standpoint, like, I see this as sort of a prime opportunity to pour into my career for those reasons. Like, I don't have kids yet. I don't have aging parents that I am trying to take care of. And so right now I do have some of that space. And so I sort of look at that as like, okay, like I think that this is a little lopsided of a chapter for me that's a little bit more work dominant, and I know that it won't always be like that. But even in that, sort of the lopsidedness of work, it's like, how can I still sprinkle in some aspects of life and health into that? So that's where I think like that rhythm or integration comes in. How about you? What sort of chapter do you or season do you feel like you're in right now?
Yes, okay, and then I'll come back to the question I have for you because I was like, "Oh, let me ask something back to what you're saying." I am in Rhythm RX, right? We've talked about this is coming out May 22nd for the Denverites and people in Colorado. Please come. It's gonna be such a good time. And we are full force working on it to make sure it executes incredibly well because that's part of who I am. And I believe in people having access to mental health. I also believe in us when we make profit to give back to others, especially communities that raised us or the communities that are left out when we talk about fiscal opportunities, things like that. So all these little intricacies we're making sure happen. And so in that full like rushing river, and it feels a little bit like rapids in some moments. We talk about some moments I'm like, okay, here we go. And it's like a rush. And then other moments I'm like, oh, no, there's still steady work to be done, but I've made it through that level 4 rapid or whatnot. And so what I would say is I'm in a very full season, but it's also really meaningful. And so I am getting less sleep. I am holding different weights or asking 15 different questions. I'm writing things down. That's a really practical thing for me. For those of you part of the community, as you're listening to this, having something by your bedside table that you can write a quick note, that you have it on your phone, that you can write it quick, or like I have a little journal that I have with me and I'm just writing down.
Mhm.
Yesterday, I was like, Nick, can you, like, shouted two names. I shouted a person's name and then I said Brewability, which is a brewery in town that works with people with special needs or physical needs or cognitive abilities and disabilities. And so just those things, I was like, can you text me those two names? Because I knew if I could offload that, then I could come back into being the present because I'm very heavy right now in work. And what I was going to say is with that, and thanks for asking me the question, is for so many of our years, like I'm talking humanity's existence, we are agrarian society. And so work and life were one, or we were hunter gatherers, or we sat around a fire, or we bartered and traded. And so it just was like wake up in the morning, I go out and I live my day and my community's right here and we're all one. And maybe you sell apples and I teach the kids, or I sell, nuts and fur and you are the nurse or whatever it is. Like just throwing those out there, but we just trade and we operate in this flow. And so I think that now with all the specialties we have and all these thousands of opportunities, it almost feels more segmented than it needs to. And that's why I so appreciate when we were talking on the front end, you're like, I don't actually think it's this like separation of work and life and this like 50-50 balance. I see it more as that integration. And yeah, so that's what's coming up for me there is saying, yes, I actually agree with that more. I thought I would take the stance of like, no, balance is so important.
Yeah.
You're teaching me, and as I'm listening to you, I think one of the metrics we do as women, and I'll speak for myself, but also offering permission is what is my balance I need?
Yeah.
Not what is Instagram's, not what do I see on Pinterest, not what do even do I see about a colleague who's phenomenal and the operations that they're able to do. I'll speak highly about the colleagues that I had in the school systems, women who have multiple children and work full time, and they have their head on their shoulders and they're living a beautiful life from the external. And so, knowing them as much as I do, I think it's internally too. Ever I was not my best self when I was working full time and working and then coming home and only getting to see Marcus for an hour or two. It was not productive for me. Cooking and cleaning felt like a lot. So there just was so much. And I know some people are like, I just don't have that opportunity. What I would say is, are there ways to scale back so then you could create that opportunity if that's important for the reset of the system, if that is part of your balance, or in my case, my balance. And so instead of me comparing, which I did at first, I'm like, how do all these ladies do this? Who I respect and I love, and I'm feeling like a psycho inside, like I'm barely getting one foot in front of the other. And so Nick and I had some really frank and important and poignant conversations to say, that rhythm doesn't work for me, or that isn't balanced to me. And so on the flip side, I had a mom who's stay-at-home mom, which was beautiful, and she, for other reasons, chose to be that and was kind of put into that place. And she made the best of it and was phenomenal at stay home. I learned very quickly in that transition between not working full time to then getting a part-time job that full-time stay at home is much harder. Let me say this out loud. We all hold weights. For those of you who are full-time stay at home, y'all hold like the fort down in a way that we do not. And I'll just share that. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a better thing. It just is different energy given. And so I had to learn my rhythm was best working part time where my brain got to go somewhere and analytically different than in the home only with kids. And simultaneously, I needed more time in my day or in my week than just 40 hours. I need 32 max, really 20 is like my sweet spot. And because of the choices Nick and I made in previous lives, and also I'm married to a cheap guy, or a frugal man, he'll listen to this. But so just some of those choices that we made allowed me to go part-time. So I share that coming back into what balance is for me. What does my balance look like? Not Instagrams, not Pinterest, not even my best friends, right? Like Jen, you're gonna find rhythms that work for you that don't work for me, or vice versa, stuff like that. So coming back to you, what would you say you've learned between you and John, or in your own daily operations, especially working from home? long setup, I realized. What is that balance or that rhythm, that integration look like? Are you let me sit down for 8 hours every day and just break it out? Are you like, let me go for a bit and then I'm gonna go play tennis and then go again? Or what's a rhythm that you find yourself in this season of life?
I would say right now it's, when you were talking about in the olden days when sort of work and life were just inherently intertwined as one, we have done a lot of separating, and I find myself doing more of that coupling or that sort of integrating more and more. And so my day to day often is like an early wake up, like 5, 6, and then I'm on calls early, 5:30, 6:30, and then I get to and I choose to, or I sort of carve out like a late morning workout window for me. And then I'm back at my desk later in the day. And, there are unique things about my job that make that possible, which is working for like a global company. And so at any point in the day or night, somebody is always online, which can also be a double-edged sword in the sense that, like, someone always could have a question at 2 a.m. or midnight, But I think as long as you can sort of create this container or boundaries that, yeah, again, like you said, make it work for you, that's what's important. And so I feel like that's where I'm at right now.
Cool. And I wonder, as you're sharing that, cell phones came into my mind and technology, and not viewing them as a negative place, actually holding them with grace, with gentleness and softness, of saying, it is so cool. I just got to join Nick on his work trip for 3 days, 4 days to Nashville because I haven't been there. And so I work throughout the morning so because I work remote. And that's an incredible opportunity that does not exist in some spheres and also didn't 20 years ago. And so coming to a place of that beauty of being able to use technology and then simultaneously saying, okay, when do I need to not have my emails on my phone? When do I need to not have access and or leave my phone? And Nick's was a conference. And so we had really fun evenings. And so I didn't even bring my phone because again, I'm eating, breathing, sleeping Rhythm RX right now, along with the other few things I'm involved in with schools and different things. And so my plate is full. And so I was like, I need to leave my phone. And so I did. I felt a little bit naked. I'll call it what it is. But left my phone. We had a great time doing the different excursions and the different evenings that they had for us. And then I was able to come back and then jump on and finish out my emails at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And then other nights I just went straight to bed. And so starting to figure out those rhythms too. What does that look like? And the beauty of working remote and or the need to unplug because we have everything at our fingertips.
Yeah. Yeah, and that choice, like with the phone in particular, I think is such a uh like a thing we need to be mindful about, of what does facilitate this integration for me in this very moment or season,
Mhm.
and checking ourselves on that as we go. And certain days the answer will be different, certain seasons the answer will be different.
Yeah. 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 Again, that those seasons, those rhythms, I think you call them chapters too. I had someone when I was a teenager say, "Hopefully you get to live 1,000 chapters." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Even your hardest moments, it feels so like it's the worst day ever, and you will never remember anything different than the deepest pains that you know, a death, a breakup, a whatever." And then they're like, "But time does pass, the chapter changes, and a new chapter comes, and you're on the next adventure, and you still may remember some of those 45, 60 pages back, but it actually is a new season." And for whatever reason, those chapters have really stuck with me. And so I'm like, all right, I don't know what number I'm in, but I hope that I have another 40, 46 or 460 to go. And how do I hold this balance, this ebb and flow, this integration with my hands open and not tight fisted? Again, saying like, what this is a bit into stoicism, but like, what am I carrying that isn't mine? What am I clinging to? Is it accolades that I want to get some sort of title or have some sort of promotion or something like that, a bonus, putting food on the table, all good things. But am I like tight fisting that where I then miss out on other pieces of my life? Or is it saying, no, I want to provide and work my tail off to allow for this mental health community to get together and just dance and people locally get to have a really good time and again give back into the world, but it actually fulfills me, so it's worth putting in the 80 hours a week right now and things like that. So
For sure, for
I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's what is right for each of us. Go ahead. What were you gonna say? I see you jumping at that.
Well, just your phrase about, like, the chapter will change, I think that that is so true, and if you're listening to this, you know very well that life is extremely dynamic, and it's always changing, and it's ever evolving, and what's being asked of us is constant and constantly changing, and so I think if we can sort of in this construct of like work life integration and the idea of like seasons or chapters, how can like this truth of like the chapter will change, like the chapter will turn over, the page will eventually turn on this chapter. We may not know when, if it's in 3 days or in 3 years, but like the chapter will change. And so whether you're in a hard chapter or a hard season, how can like that help you rest in like hope in that chapter, and then also if you're in a smooth, gliding, successful, on top of the world chapter, how can you have this, like, "Okay, this chapter will change," as almost like a humbling element, you know, that, like, I'm not always going to be having easy, seamless success in my life. I may be right now, but, like, that chapter is going to change, and I think that almost just like anticipatory awareness of the evolutionary sort of drift of life, I suppose, is like at the core of work life integration and knowing that like this season that I'm in right now is calling for X, Y, and Z. And it's not going to be forever. And the chapter will change. And like, how can that help you even be more present in it?
So good. There's the phrase, going around on socials right now of, am I aware that I'm living the life I once prayed for?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's true, and I say this with the utmost kindness because I know people in our community are going through all sorts of feelings about being a parent, wanting to become a parent, being an auntie, being an uncle, being just where we're at with that. What I will say is we are out and through diapers and breastfeeding and all those things, and I've had a hysterectomy, and so I've had to grieve through, man, like, talking about that being present, like, I loved as hard as it was, as many tears, as many fluids, as many everything, those breastfeeding days and those early infancy years were things that I did pray for, and now that I'm through them, I'm like, "Those were so sweet." Don't get me wrong, I now get to sleep way more because I'm beyond those, but it's that what you're saying right there is that gratitude, like, am I aware? We've talked about gratitude in previous ones, and it is something that sustains me, but is that humility to stop and say, "Am I aware that what I'm living actually is what I had hoped for?" Or that this day, this grind, or this amount of sleep that I'm getting is for a season, and there will be something else that comes, work, play, kids, whatever it might be, that then pull me back into a harder season of life too. And so I think that's beautiful and deeply, deeply aware to say, can I be present in the current moment knowing that this chapter will change?
Yes, and being in tune with, like, what this chapter is asking of you, and acknowledging that it may be a lopsided ask, and it may look like it's more like an 80-20 split of the typical work-life balance than the ideal 50-50 split, and that's just, like, the nature of, I think, how life goes, you know? I don't think that for us to walk through life 70, if we get to be that old, 70, 80, 90 years old and like look back on our life and be like, yeah, if I would say for the majority of my life, I was like pretty 50-50 split between work and life all 80 years. I would highly doubt that. I would highly doubt that. So,
Yeah, it's like those it's people who say, "I'm 50-50," and next one of them who's like, "Integrated introverted, extroverted." I'm like, "Tell me how," because that's just not me and stuff, but, maybe those people do exist, but I think you're right of, like, if either by what life creates for us and or brings to us, unfortunately and fortunately, both ways,
right.
and also then what we cultivate for ourselves or how we respond in that, and so I was just reading a book, and it talked about the prepared mind leads to the luckiest people. And I thought that that was interesting of, like, those that are luckiest usually have a very prepared mind, and so it's like that duality and actually the reality of, like, I need to prepare, I need to prepare, I need to prepare, and sometimes I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna get the that I need, and other times, man, it creates a whole lot of other opportunities because I have been in the grind. I have done the things I need to. I have gone above and beyond or provided for the future generations or whatnot. So different ways to look at that. I do want to bring us into it, and then please bring us into whatever you want. I'm just going to highlight these three. For those of you who are listening and up to this point, you're like, no, I need to give myself permission to rest, because we've talked about rest and resets. We've talked about rhythms. We've talked about many things in the past weeks. Go back and listen to those by all means. For today, three reminders of how balance does help us. And it focuses more on those of us that are go-getters and how do we kind of take a step back to reflect and be present. Is the brain does need recovery cycles. Sustaining life without breaks creates a fuzziness in our brain, and cognitive performance does decline. So research does show that. So regular pauses, and we talked about this again last week, but regular pauses allow us to reset and then actually become more productive. And so that's where unplugging our phones, sleeping at night, doing some of these, getting out and working out, like you said, playing tennis, whatever it might be, those do reduce decision fatigue. So it is necessary for us to find some balance there and some regulation and some calming. So brain needs recovery cycles. The second one is boundaries calm the stress response. For those of us that are yes people, we need to figure out boundaries. And I know that's a buzzword right now, but figure out how to say no to a colleague who's like, hey, Beck, you got this last one. Can't you just stay an extra 30 minutes? Oh, can you meet with this last client? Or, hey, can you print off those 5 things? Or, hey, can you come in tomorrow for shift work, right? For all our shift workers that are part of this community, our wild ones, sometimes saying no so that way you can go be with your family, or so that you can go rest, or so that you can go be present is equally important. On the personal side, if you are not married or if you don't have kids, your life is just as worthy and as full as those who have kids or those who are married. And so you saying, oh, I'm going to say no because my married cousin is like, take this, or whatever. And you're like, I'm not married, so maybe they're busier. No, 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 no. Your life, giving you that self permission to say there's a clear start and end time. And how do I transition out of work to come into whatever present moment I need to in my personal life? To watch TV, to go for a run, to unplug from the phone, whatever it is. So first one is brain needs recovery. Second one is boundaries helps calm stress. And then the third one is balance protects cognition and mood. And I'm going to read this last one. But work-life imbalance has been linked with worse attention, concentration, learning, remembering, and executive functioning. So all of that. So truly, the more, if we sustain at this high rate, chances are we're going to be angrier people or we're going to be more anxious people. And so coming back to those first two to say, how do I take these pauses for a short time? Even in this chapter, saying a chapter will end. So no, for the next 10, 20 years, I will not go at this pace. Otherwise, by the time I'm in my 50s, I'll have higher rates of, heart issues, or I might be far more heavier, like whatever it is, because I didn't take care of me. And I know that those are such complex situations. So I hold those with kindness, and also saying there are stepping stones to get there. So brain needs recovery, boundaries calm the stress response, and then balance protects cognition and mood. So those are three I just want to make sure we do hit from the science and psychology side. Anything there? Otherwise, I have one last question for you before you take us in. Yeah.
No, I think the only thing I would say is I think like your word reprieve is so good, no matter what sort of the dominant headline of your season is, whether it's work, caretaking, relaxation, and sabbatical type stuff, or whatever it is. It's like, even if those headlines are like in theory good things, we do need a little reprieve and a little integration of other things. I was just talking to somebody that I love deeply who is not working right now at all, but she is doing a lot of caretaking, and she is just so struggling because she feels like she's like missing this work component, And so even if the headline is not work, even if the headline is something like caretaking or whatever it may be, looking for those reprieves are critical. How do we integrate some of these habits or outlets into whatever the dominant headline is that we're being called to focus on?
Beautiful. And that goes back into, what was the first one I talked about? Ayurveda was the second one. Going back into Taoism, of this idea that what is the flow, what is forced, and caregiving often can be forced, and yet it's an obligation we believe in, and it's necessary. And I say that with the utmost kindness of, when I'm in those seasons, can I do something that's still important to me? Or can I share that? Can I integrate and say, okay, I need to caregiver for you. Come on, you're coming with me and we're going to Boulder. Or I think about when I was a caregiver for an elderly couple and I took them around and started doing a few things, and, like, I took them to the movies because I was like, "Look, I am so exhausted. I wanna go see a movie." And so sure enough, we did that, or we'd listen to jazz music at night because I was like, "I can't sit and talk to you for another hour," right? Like, just some of these things, and I know for others of us, it's like with aging parents, that is something, fortunately, I'm not there yet, but many of us are, and so saying like, how do I, at the end of a hard day, go take care of mom or dad, go be with aunt or uncle or whoever, meet their needs and still have time for me? Or can I meet their needs while meeting my own needs?
Right. Right.
And is there something like that where it's like, guess what? I'm going through McDonald's and I'm picking that up tonight because that's the meal we're having. Or I brought us all a box of chocolates and we're going to each try, half and half. Or starting to do some of those fun things. Or guess what? Instead of watching Fox News, we're going to listen to a book on tape, or we're going to go watch an old show from the 60s. Or again, I'm just throwing ideas out there, but starting to say, can we blend and can we integrate both our own and the work that we do?
Right. Right.
So, some ideas to think about. Did not know if I was gonna did not know where the journey would go, but I like that. It allows us to have some joy, some hope, some positivity in there.
Yeah.
And meaning making. It's a lot easier to hold, to stay at it, to endure, to cultivate when I find meaning in what I'm doing.
Mm.
Right? Whether that's relationships, parenting, being a child, being a spouse, whatever it might be, whether that's in work when it's meaningful to my purpose, to my core values, to getting up in the morning, putting food on the table, whatever it is. So thinking through our whys, even in something with this category, like you said, or the topic changing. The banner, what was the word you said?
The headline.
The headline, that's beautiful. I can picture that. A lot of writing and chapters, headlines, lots to do with the language. But what is your journal prompt for us today?
Yeah, the journal prompt for today is, if my life right now had a season title, what would it be called? And what is the primary purpose of this specific chapter? So, some ideas maybe could be like the season of building, the season of creativity, the season of rest, the season of just getting by, the season of caretaking. Lots of things to sort of think about and put a word to capture what season you're in right now. So just wanted to give you a couple starting ideas to get you going.
Love it. What I was thinking for you as you said that is mic drop, crushing it as you have different opportunities coming. So thinking about that for you. And I just realized as we zoomed out, I'm looking real clashy right now in all my greens, but that's okay. So sometimes you're crushing it.
It was like a gray or a green.
It was gray. It's not. I was freezing. It's really cold in Denver right now. And so I have a green on a green and they don't match.
I
So
like it. It's like an ombre fashion trend, like the monochrome fashion trend. Just go with it, Becca. It was intentional.
one of us is crushing it. The other one's learning how to dress themselves for the first time.
Fashionista.
There you go. We hope you all have an awesome, awesome week. Please join us again next week for another episode of Her Huddles. We're grateful for you, wild ones. Be well.